Yeah, what's going on, party people? The place to be. I go by the name of the BK Apologist, transmitting all the way live. New York is the city. Brooklyn is the borough. What's good? What's poppin'? It's Thursday night. We in here. We're representing different parts of the nation. We got Detroit. We got Texas. We got New York. We're trying to cover all the bases. I got some friends with me. I know this is not the Brooklyn Bodega. I don't want people to be confused. But, you know, I like these guys so much, I couldn't wait till Friday to hang out with them. So I'm going to let my man from Detroit introduce himself. Go for it, bro.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Apologist in Detroit, Chris Samuel on Facebook. Happy to be here, man. Thanks for the invitation.
Sure. And next up from Texas, who we got?
We got MJ Jackson. I'm happy to be hanging out with these seasoned veterans. and I know we're going to chop it up big time tonight.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be fun. We're going to have some fun. We're definitely going to have some fun. But let me say who's in here already. We got Elizabeth representing Facebook and YouTube, right? So that's what's up. What's up, Nate? Gift of God has arrived.
He is such a narcissist.
It's your humility, Nate, that I love most about you. You know, how you just put others before you. It's just amazing, you know. We got Benjamin Dixon in the building. We got Carmel. What up? We got D Proverbs in the building. All right, was good. Yeah, man. So please share the link. You know what I mean? Like, share, subscribe. Let me do an early plug for a future show, May 25th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, The Unseen Realm of Apologetics with Dr. Michael Heiser. You guys got to be in the building for that. It's going to be high-level nerddom at its finest. We're going to talk about how apologetics infect and affect the spiritual realm. It's gonna be super nerdy. You're gonna enjoy it. So let me do this real quick. Pow. See who else is in the building real quick. All right, Nate. So what we're gonna do tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the high points for me in the what we've been coined as the UA, which I actually like that. The UA is kind of dope. You know what I mean? But one of the highlights of the year was this amazing debate between Vince Bantu and Jabari Osase. And shout out to Jabari. I know he was under the weather for a while. He's definitely recovered. So salute to him. It's good to see him up and about, gardening and doing what he does. So that's pretty dope. But yeah, I mean, it was an amazing time. It was a time where me and Adam really got together. That's like the first time me and Adam actually did shows together too. And the way we just clicked was just so amazing, you know, and it was so much fun. I learned so much from him and even from my own studies, just fact checking the debate. And what I want to do today is just take some high points, you know. Oh, and by the way, you know, all of the breakdowns that me and Adam have done can be found on my channel right now. I've asked Adam if it was okay to put his, the ones that we did on his channel. He said, go right ahead. So I have a playlist in my channel for the entire breakdown of the debates. So forget about Netflix and chill. You can binge watch the playlist and really get equipped. There's a lot of meat, a lot of sauces. But what we're gonna do now, we're gonna do a Cliff Note version of that, right? And you know, one reason why I brought up MJ, because I know MJ, this is something that's near and dear to him as well. You know, dealing with the conscious community. I don't know if Apologists in Detroit has the same experience, but well, do you have the same experience with these guys, or?
No, I don't get a lot of interaction with urban cults because I live actually in cults. We the UA, they the UC.
Facts. And MJ, of course, you know, you definitely have more than your fair share of run-ins with these guys. So
all the time at the barbershop. everybody getting their daily dose of Sinetta TV. So
So he's big out there, huh?
I mean, I'm just gonna be flat out honest with you. Like back in the day when there was a new dance, of course, New York got it first. Y'all have the best dancers and all that good stuff, and then of course it'll make its way down here to Texas.
Right.
But just like with the dance moves and things like that, the Kemetic movement and the Hebrew Israelites, all that stuff has just now started making its way to Texas, and unfortunately, Dallas is more progressive than Fort Worth.
Okay.
And it even shows in the, I live in Fort Worth, but it even shows in how we do ministry and things like that. So you do have some pastors out here in Fort Worth that's hip to the game, but they kind of playing catch up in terms of Dallas and the Houston area. So we're trying to get Fort Worth caught up so that they'll be able to better defend the gospel when it comes to these UCs. As Brother Chris dubbed.
I'm just checking out the Facebook live real quick. Yeah, this is fun. These bells and whistles.
I see. I'm like, what's that F? What's the live chat?
Give me a minute here. All right, cool. Alrighty. Nice. So what we're gonna do today, guys, we're gonna look at some of the things that we might come across when you deal with the conscious community. And the title of this is I skipped already. Is Kemet, keep that same energy. Now, why do I say that? Because a lot of times when we have these discussions with people in the conscious community, there's certain accusations they love to throw at us, right? Which is fine, because we got to defend the faith. That's what apologia means, right? To show people why we have the hope that we have. But if you're willing to throw it at us, you need to be just as willing to catch it right back, right? And a lot of times these guys are not equipped to do that. They're not used to having to question their own worldview. Nate's funny. Look at this guy. So we're going to look at one of those accusations right now. That is, Christians destroyed ancient Egypt. Have any of you guys ever heard people say that about us?
That's the first time I've come across that, but it's no surprise, unfortunately.
Right. Well, I mean, this definitely came up in the debate, and I've heard other people say that. So, my man, was it? Dang. Just saw you last night for the first time. Thanks to Eda Volcan. So, totally enjoyed the history of the artifacts that resonate with our. Yes, thank you. Please tell a friend to tell a friend. Thank you so much. But right. This is it's the cliche comments by the conscious community. Absolutely. They like to say that the Christians came and they defaced the temples, and that's why they're anti-African, because how can you destroy the culture, right? They say this a lot. Well, the thing about that, right? This is from Edward Blueburg. He's an American archaeologist. Why can't I say it today? And Egyptologist. And this is what he says. He says, iconoclasm on a grand scale was primarily political in motive. He writes in the exhibition catalog for Striking Power. The facing statues aided ambitious rulers and would-be rulers with rewriting history to their advantage. Over the centuries, this erasure often occurred along gendered lines. The legacies of two powerful Egyptian queens whose authority and mystique fueled the cultural imagination, Hatshepsut and Nefertiti, were largely erased from visual culture. In fact, here's one of those iconoclastic defacements of Hatshepsut right here. So they say we destroyed Kemet. No. You destroyed Kemet. Because you guys can't handle other people being great in your culture, especially women. right? And we always hear these guys talk about, the black woman is God. Well, there were 2 black women here that you couldn't wait to erase from history. So hold that, please. Continuing, the ancient Egyptians, it's important to note, ascribed important power to images of the human form. They believed that the essence of a deity could inhabit an image of that deity, or in the case of mere mortals, part of the deceased human being's soul could inhabit a statue inscribed for that particular person. These campaigns of vandalism were therefore intended to deactivate an image's strength, as Blueburg puts it. So there was a method to that madness. If they didn't want to, if a particular deity fell out of favor with a pharaoh, he wants to turn off the switch of that deity. What he does is what? They break what? The nose. They break the mouth, right? A lot of times people say, well, it was the Europeans. It was Napoleon came and knocked the nose off the spink. No. It wasn't Napoleon. It happened way before he showed up. They did it because they wanted to deactivate the power of these deities and the rulers that subscribe to these deities, right? It was their version of they photoshopped, right? They literally tried to erase the legacy of the previous pharaoh. Now, speaking of Hatshepsut was somehow able to do everything right, securing expanding borders, enriching the elites, building houses of stone for the gods throughout the land, engaging in risky trade ventures with faraway lands, and left Egypt better off than she found it. She did what the gods would have expected of a male king and more. None of the queens who came before or after her managed to transcend the crisis they had inherited and leave Egypt in better shape after their rule. Indeed, it seems we are interested in these women rulers precisely because of their association with failure. They are our cautionary tales, the stories historians enjoy dramatizing, the opportunity to show that female leadership is a dangerous thing. But as Hatshepsut would discover, success can be tricky if performed traditionally as the gods would expect. Good rule is abstract, something another leader could easily take credit for as his own. Indeed, Hatshepsut's own nephew and co-king would later erase her figures and texts and reassign credit to his father or grandfather for much of what she had done. And this is from When Women Ruled the World, 6 Queens of Egypt by Clooney. Guys, got any thoughts about this thus far?
Well, when you were talking about the statues, they a lot of modern Kemetic teachers would have us believe that the reason why their nose and lips were torn off is because white society does not want you to know that we were the ancient Kemetics, or we are somehow related to them and they're our ancestors and things like that. When the simple fact of the matter is, the more that you study, the more that you'll figure out that we're dealing with people who are extremely religious. And those statues, as you said, served as receptacles for what the ancient Kemetics or Egyptians called the Ba, which was the essence or some type of force that went into the nose or the mouth. That's right. They believe that it either went through the nose or the mouth and animated the statue, which was also another reason why God, the God of the Bible, Yahweh, wasn't having any of it. We also read in the Bible what the Lord did to the Philistine statues and things like that when the Ark of the Covenant was placed in their temple. Just totally tore it up. So we see that even in the Bible, the Bible is interacting with these belief systems. And yes, these people are religious, and that those statues are not just for principles, or these were just principles. Stuff like that. No, that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to revise history. You're trying to do a cover up. The fact of the matter is, if you're going to be a Kemetic, be a Kemetic.
Right.
Keep that same energy.
Keep that same energy, because this is your worldview. This is it right here. You did this.
And if you won't keep that same energy, we just have to call you out, because what you're really trying to do is borrow from somebody else's worldview. But that's
facts. And MJ will definitely call you. I've seen it happen in real time. He will do it to you. So, Mr. Detroit, you want to add a couple words to this as well?
No, I don't have much to add to that. I mean, you guys did a fantastic job.
Cool.
I'm gonna sit back, chill back on this one.
No doubt. Just happy for you to be here. All right. The next accusation they like to throw at us is that the Bible devalues women. Have you guys ever heard that? How about in the chat? When you have talks with these guys, do they throw that at you? It's like, well, women are second-class citizens in the Bible. In Egypt, there would, we treated our women like gods. Like, have you ever come across that? Anyone?
I've heard that before.
Okay. All right. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So let's see then. Let's see what the Bible says about women, right? It's one of my favorite scholars outside of Mr. Heiser, John Walton. In his commentary on Genesis, John Walton has this to say about the word helper, Isa, in the Old Testament. The word helper is common enough as a description of someone who comes to the aid or provides a service for someone. It carries no implications regarding their relationship or relative status of the individuals involved. In fact, the noun form of the word found in this verse, of course, the verse he's talking about is, when God made woman and made woman to be the helper. This is the context of what he's talking about. In this verse, as used elsewhere, refers almost exclusively to God as the one who helps his people. If we expand our investigation to verbal forms, we find a continuing predominance of God as the subject, though there are a handful of occurrences where people help people. In this latter category, we find people helping their neighbors or relatives, people helping in political lines or coalition, and military reinforcements. Nothing suggests a subservient status of the one helping. In fact, the opposite is more likely. Certainly, helper cannot be understood as the opposite or complement of leader. This is from John Walton, Genesis, the NIV application commentary. So when the woman is created, she's not created to be the sidekick to the man. She is also a imager of God, right? And the fact that she's called a helper, see, in our connotation, right? We think the word helper, we think, the maid, right? You're here to clean the leaves in the foyer or whatever. That's not what a helper is in the Bible, right? She is looked at as an imager of God, because the same word helper is used primarily to describe God. That's how important the woman is, because the man's job is to also represent God. But men have a hard time doing that. So we need a friendly reminder. And that's where the woman comes in. When we see the woman, it reminds us of who we need to be, because she is also an imager of God. Her job is to basically help us continue being the imager of God that we are. This is what we see in the Bible. This will sound like a second-class citizen to me. What you guys think?
I think people often get like they read the scriptures with modern eyes, and they think about here in America in the 60s and prior with women's suffrage, and they see maybe some similarities between some of the features of the Bible and some of the behaviors, or our cultural behaviors of women during that period of time. But the reality is, the people who were that cultural influence came from improper interpretation of scripture. Westernism is highly influenced by, often misinterpretations of the Bible. How many stories do you get from the ancient world where you're getting pairings, where you're getting a co-heiress, like a co-priest, like Adam and Eve, were. They were priests, right? So you're getting this priesting pair. And yes, after the fall, there was an explanation for her. Your desire will be to rule him, but he shall have rule over you. But it misses the point. And even beyond that, the continuation of the stories, you get Abraham. You don't just get the story of Abraham, you get the story of Sarah. You get intimate details about her. That's significant in these ancient, in comparison to other ancient worldviews and texts. The amount of stories that you get that encompass or that accounts for the women in significant ways, it's unparalleled when you look at the Bible.
Mr. Jackson, thoughts?
Well, yeah, my thoughts is when the Bible first bring the man and woman on the scene, the Bible says that he blessed them and he commanded them to be fruitful and multiply, replenish and subdue the earth. And so that was something that they were supposed to do together. And furthermore, when you get over here to the New Testament and the New Testament teaching is for, basically we get to that point where the image of God is being restored and we're being conformed into the image of Christ. We see in First Peter 3:1 that the husbands are supposed to honor their wives and love their wives. And Peter also gives them a warning, lest your prayers be hindered. So we just can't we can't just treat our wives any type of way and mistreat them and things like that. I mean, we're given a flat out warning that if we don't do right by our wives, our prayers could get hindered, and that's not a good look.
Right, absolutely. So let's continue. Now, like you said, in the New Testament, women are actually very empowered within the church in the first century throughout the Greco-Roman world, because there are certain things that women could do in the church that they couldn't do as just being a regular old Roman citizen. And here's a compare and contrast. In Rome, you have the gynecium, which is segregated quarters for the wife in her husband's home in ancient Athens. Whereas in the church, there is no segregated quarters for a wife in her home. She's shared with her husband at all times. The Athenian wife was confined to her quarters when men guests were present. But we see in the Gospels, right, Mary and Martha hosted Jesus in their home, right? Totally different. In Greco-Roman culture, you had the hatera, which is a man's legal mistress in ancient Greece. Of course, in the church, there are no mistresses for men allowed, right? In Greco-Roman times, the veil was worn publicly by married women in Greco-Roman times and most other ancient societies, whereas in the church, the veiling of women discontinued after the 9th century. So it makes sense to hear this particular quote. It says, Christendom dare not forget that it was primarily the female sex that for the greater part brought about its rapid growth. It was the evangelistic zeal of women in the early years of the church and later, which won the weak and the mighty. This is from Der Dienst der Frau. The translation is The Service of the Woman in the First Centuries of the Christian Church by Leopold Zortnak. So women, as in warrior women, what's up? They were empowered because of the freedom that they received in Christ. So it made sense that it was the women who would go out and be evangelistic, because, like, listen, guys, you got to get this gospel, because when you get this gospel, man, you get to actually live with your husband. You don't got to, you're not roommates anymore. You're co-heirs with him. That he got to throw out that legal side chick of his. She got to go. Like, this is good stuff. You guys got to come get some of this. You know what I mean? So it really makes sense, that the women will take the lead. Thoughts?
Go ahead, bro.
Well, I was going to talk more about the Old Testament again. I was going to say, listen, when you're getting Miriam, the sister of Moses, prophesying, that's a symbol of equality. She was a leader amongst the community in the desert, right? When you're getting Deborah, a judge that the male figure is consulting, I mean, that's significant. Yes. When you're getting, even stories like Rahab or Ruth, or Esther. These are all these are all very significant type of stories for the ancient world, for them to have female leads that contributed significantly to the religious worldviews. That's the only kind of way I can kind of describe it. These are very significant. You really don't get that in a whole lot of. You don't get much of that at all in most other ancient religions.
Absolutely, Mr. Jackson, sir.
Yeah, and people can see the view that Jesus had when we can go to Luke 10 and 42, Luke 10, I think 40 through 42, where I think it was. Let me just take a look. I think it was Martha was complaining that Mary wasn't helping her out with the chores, and in verse 41, Jesus said, Martha, Martha, why are you worried and upset about many things? But the one thing is necessary, and Mary has made the right choice, and it will not be taken away from her. So even Jesus didn't relegate women to this subservient position. No, Jesus allowed Mary to basically come and learn and join in, and that's what you just pointed to about the rapid growth of the church, because who was it to report back first to the rest of the apostles about what happened?
Right, facts.
It was the ladies at the tomb, and based on of course we can go by the criteria of embarrassment as well, that women were the first to report this back. Right. So we see the role of women elevated through being elevated higher and higher throughout the Bible.
Right. So this is what we see from the Bible, right? This is not only scripture, but we see how the application of scripture affects women when they use the Bible. So, kemet, we're going to see what your religion does to women, right? Got to keep that same energy. So, it says here, prostitutes in ancient Egypt were respected and even considered sacred, as the first institutions where prostitution flourished were the temples of the gods. This is from El Shaddai Nawal, Prostitution in Egypt, UNESCO retrieved April 22nd, 2017. Prostitutes in ancient Egypt were respected and even considered sacred, right? And not only that, the god Amun indulged in sexual activity with many women under a religious guise. Families often gave their most beautiful daughters to the priest of his temple. As soon as they grow too old for the taste of the priest, they were allowed to leave. Many practiced prostitution until they were married. So now, of course, you could say, there's plenty of Christians that have used prostitutes. You're right. But when a Christian does that, he strays from his religion. But when the ancient commission did it, he stayed in his religion. Big difference. Big difference. When a Christian does it, he's stepping outside of his worldview and belief. When the commission did it, they were right in the pocket of their worldview. But yet, you're saying that the Bible devalues women. So what's this? MJ, would you like to say about that?
Brother, you missing the point. They were nation building, brother. Now with no prostitutes. Sound like somebody was getting a free card.
The god Amun. The god Amun was getting his free card.
And see, I'm gonna stick to the whole prostitute thing, but that's the difference between the God of the Bible, who is holy, and these gods that men have projected their nasty, sinful natures onto, right? Which is not. These are projections of the fantasies of decrepit, nasty, filthy individuals. And how can you even let your daughter be a prostitute? My goodness.
Until she was married. Or she was too old, or if she was too old.
I'm trying to be nice, but who who would want to marry that? I would be angry. I'm done.
What you gotta say about this, Mr. Detroit?
Mr. Detroit gonna read to you some Old Testament. So Deuteronomy 23 verses 17 and 18. No Israelite man or woman is to become a shrine prostitute. You must not bring the earnings of a female prostitute or male prostitute into the house of the Lord your God to pay any vow, because the Lord your God detests them both.
So that's the antithesis of what I just read. It is literally the complete opposite. Don't bring that into God's temple, but in kemet, please bring it into God's temple, right? But yet we devalue women. What's this? We need you to keep the same energy. Like, when MJ, have you ever heard any of these dudes mention this?
No, but what I have heard them mention, and I was, just listening to the debate with Brother Jabari and Dr. Bantu, was they said that the Romans got it from them. Okay, they got their religion essentially from them, right?
Right.
So if we're gonna keep that same energy or be consistent, however we want to say this, they would have also had to get temple prostitution from them as well, because unlike the people of the Bible, the unbelievers thought that if they go in and have sex in the temple, it would make it rain, or it would bring about rain or fertility for the ground and produce crops. So whatever they did, they could manipulate by their actions. They could manipulate the God into doing the same. That's why, you listen to dudes like Browder, there cannot be a male God without a female God. Well, yeah, according to your worldview, because they got to have sex too in order to make it rain.
Right.
And this is just it's just ludicrous. These are not principles. These are not feminine principles. They are up there getting it on.
Yes, they are.
There's nothing extraordinary about it. But you have a nation like Israel, surrounded by all these people groups and all these people groups essentially believe the same thing about the gods, that they can be manipulated with magic, that you can go in and have sex in the temple and you can make the god send rain and fertility and all that stuff. But you have Israel surrounded by all these nations, and their beliefs were so radically different and opposed to that. But you want to say that it's a copy, but it's a poor copy. Nah, that's special pleading. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. So let's keep it going. So now remember, right? They say that we devalue women, right? The Christianity, the Bible, right? Well, watch this. This is from, it's called Gender Transformation in Death, a case study of coffins from the Ramesses period, Egypt, by Kathleen M. Clooney. And this is what she says. According to ancient texts, literate and educated Egyptians believed that creation and regeneration specifically belonged to the male gender. So much for the black woman being God, right? Men were thought to be responsible for offspring from a sexual union, not women. Egyptian mythologies dealing with rebirth and after death were also highly masculinized. In the ancient Egyptian mindset, only male divine beings such as Atum, Osiris, or Re had access to the powers of creation or resurrection. Goddesses were believed to be protective vessels, essentially. Egyptian women had to shift their gender and masculinize themselves to enter the fields of peace and other realms of the afterlife. These gender alterations therefore had to be included in an elite Egyptian woman's funerary equipment, particularly her coffin. The Egyptian coffin was an excellent vehicle to transform the woman, or the man for that matter, into versions of Osiris, Re, and Atum. The coffin permitted the female individual a kind of impermanent gender shift that allowed her to become temporarily like the gods Osiris, Atum, and Re, in order to use their powers of transformation to become an eternal, pure soul, an Akh soul. The Akh was believed to be one of the blessed dead, an individual who had successfully passed the tribunal and moved as an effective and protected spirit into the afterlife. When the woman finally reached this blessed state, funerary images suggest that she returned to her feminine self, her true form for all eternity. Essentially, the same was true for men who joined the Osiris temporarily in order to become an Akh spirit, only to return to a transcendent human-like form. So, but I thought the black woman was God.
Mm-hmm.
In order for her to make it, she couldn't be a woman. She couldn't be a woman. She had to become a man to get to heaven. Your gender did not permit you into the field of peace. It prevented you from having an eternal rest in the afterlife. You had to become a man. So I'm saying.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is your religion, not mine.
You know, that really just it immediately made me think of the Gospel of Thomas.
Uh-oh. Oh, yes, that's right. That's right.
Great gospel Gnostic that was written in what language? Syriac, Coptic, and was found in the Nag Hammadi.
Mm-hmm. Facts.
Yeah. See that association there?
Yeah.
Because in the Gospel of Thomas, that's one of the sayings that women would have to become men in order for them to go to heaven.
You want to say that the Gospel of Thomas was a ripoff of ancient Kemetic beliefs? I'm with it. Okay, you can have that.
Yeah, that's exactly what
you can have that, because that joint's not inspired, so you can have it.
It's not, but it makes sense that it carries that feature, considering the language and the culture that it was obviously birthed in. That's kind of a common belief of theirs already, apparently.
So, MJ, what do you think of this spiritual gender fluidity?
Well, it has absolutely. This gender fluidity has absolutely nothing to do with the Bible or with Christianity, because you know, our teachings teach that there is an equality that's found in Jesus Christ, and within that equality, all these differences disappear. Okay, now we're talking about equality. Now you don't lose what God created you as, but as far as male being higher than female and slave and free, all that, no, there's an equality that's there. But no, you don't find any type of ridiculous teachings where you gotta. I mean, I just showed you what Jesus said in Luke 10:42. He allowed a woman to learn, you know, to sit at his feet and be discipled by him. And that was a great honor. We're talking about rabbinical teaching,
right?
You know,
absolutely. So, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that also made me think of Timothy, that passage, that controversial passage that people often appeal to for women not being able to teach, is ironically it was about Ephesus and the Artemis cult.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So
exactly, it had nothing to do with women not talking at all. It's like you can't be teaching that Artemis nonsense up in here. That's what that is, right? Facts. So another thing they like to throw at us is I said it kind of earlier, but the Christians destroyed the temples, right? Now we know now that it was these guys with their iconoclasm that they would do this to press the reset button for the next regime, right? So, but let's look more into this. Says here, sometime in his 5th regnal year, Amenhotep changed his name to Akhenaten and launched a fervent attack on the existence of gods other than the solar deity Aten. Amun was a special target, and his name and figure was effaced from temples throughout Egypt, including Karnak. Shortly after, the king decided to leave the city of Thebes and moved the center of cult, the royal residence, and its burial site to Middle Egypt to a city he named Akhenaten, modern-day Tel El Amarna. The wealth of the Amun-Ra temple at Karnak was diverted to building projects for the new city, and the temple itself was closed. This is from Karnak, Development of the Temple of Amun-Ra, Sullivan, Lane, UCLA, Encyclopedia of Egyptology. But I thought the Christians destroyed the temples, though. It was like Akhenaten didn't like that temple himself, so he got rid of it. He erased it. He took the money that was supporting the other temple and put it in his temple that he liked. That wasn't us. We didn't do that. That was you. I don't hear you guys complaining about Akhenaten, though. You know, so to continue with Akhenaten, his devotion to religious affairs caused him to neglect growing rebellion in Western Asia, while the Egyptian priesthoods grew increasingly restive at the neglect and suppression of the gods they served. Akhenaten's death was followed by a reaction and the restoration of the traditional pantheon and its worship. Although virtually no trace of the Aten temple at Karnak was left at its site when the temple was decimated after Akhenaten's death in the 14th century BC, large-scale reuse of the blocks and subsequent buildings has resulted in recapture of many thousands of them during numerous archaeological repair projects at Karnak over the last 60 years. During this period, more than 25,000 decorated blocks have been removed from monuments in the vicinity of Karnak, and possibly equal number of undecorated blocks were recovered, but most of the latter were considered unimportant and were reinserted invisibly at various points during the repair and restoration work. This is from Winfield Smith, Ray, The Akhenaten Temple Project, Expedition Magazine 10, 1967. So Akhenaten went and destroyed this guy's temple, right? But then when he died, the priesthoods of the old pantheon came and destroyed his temple. Where are the Christians here? We didn't do none of this. This is you guys. Don't put this on me. You know what I mean? It's like, I can say if I did it, then fine. You know, then we could talk about that. We didn't do this. Your man did this to you. Your man told your priesthood to shut your yap. It's my God now. You guys got to fall back. And they hated that. And they waited till this dude died and they brought them joints right back.
This heretic.
Right. They consider him a heretic. Absolutely. Absolutely. Keep that same energy, though. You guys were destroying temples left and right without us being around.
Destroying temples, ripping off noses. They were even cutting off each other's noses under certain penalties.
Right. But a point that we made in one of the breakdowns was, you know, Jabari would say, well, you Christians came and destroyed and took away African culture. It was like, well, actually, no, because part of ancient African culture was once you're done with a particular deity, you throw it away. So the Egyptian Christians were actually upholding an ancient African tradition because we believe in Yahweh now. So Amun and Ray and all these dudes, well, they got to go because that's what we do, right? Like when the new guy's in town and we pledge allegiance to this guy, the other guys got to go. So it was very much the African thing to do.
And see how he wanted to present that was that there was these white people from Europe who came in and led the charge in tearing down the temple and things like that. Well, no, it's just like what you just said. The temple belonged to the African community that was already there.
Right.
All that changed was that they were professing belief in Jesus Christ. That temple still belonged to them to do whatever they wanted to do with it.
Right. And they did what came naturally for the Africans that lived there.
Exactly.
So they were actually preserving and upholding an ancient African tradition. You just don't like how the tradition panned out for you. You know what I mean? But they still uphold your tradition. It's like, we pledge allegiance to Yahweh. All these other gods got to go. We're breaking noses. We're busting lips. And we're remodeling. We're doing feng shui to your temple because that's what we do. That's what we do.
Out the prostitute.
Right. She got to go.
Get out.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Here's another one. You Christians are spooky. Right? The Holy Ghost, the woo, and all this, it's like, we're spooky. We're spooky. Okay, that's cool. Kemet, you gotta keep that same energy because if we're spooky, you gotta have to explain these things to me. Like this. During the Old Kingdom and first intermediate period, small amulets of hands and feet were commonly included in bracelets and anklets. These amulets protected the limbs and extremities of the wearers while possibly conferring abilities such as dexterity, creative potential, or speed. Often these amulets were made of carnelian and orange red stone. The color, reminiscent of blood, would bring power and energy to the amulet. That joint sounded like it came out of Marvel Comics just there.
Right.
So we're spooky. We spooky. What's that? That's metaphysics? That's high science? That's high science?
That's just a principle, brother.
Yeah, and the principle was, I need this to protect my leg. That was the principle. You know what I mean? It's like, come on. That's not, you can't scientific it away. They're like, they really thought this was going to help them. What about this thing? The Sa amulet. This Sa amulet was found in the same tomb with a sauret bead and a wooden box. The Sa amulet extends protection to the wearer, whether in life or death. I'm saying.
Brother, that's a solar panel. Can't you tell? Solar panel.
The Sa amulet. Bro, this sounds like the Green Lantern. I mean, it's like, how's this is not spooky? This ain't spooky? That this protects you even when you die. Like, it's just a principle. Exactly, bro.
What they say, I never seen a U-Haul following a hearse. That is but these people believed that you had.
They thought they could literally take it with them.
I was reading the other day, and it said families would almost go broke taking food to the tombs of their loved ones.
Right.
They would stop when they didn't have enough money to keep going.
Absolutely. Check this out.
Yeah.
Magic wands. Wands such as this were a common feature in burials of the late Middle Kingdom. This one shows signs of wear on one tip, suggesting that it was used over a period of time before being placed in the tomb. The wand is decorated on one side with the figures of protective deities, most of whom carry knives to ward off evil spirits. The purpose of the wands is revealed by the inscription carved in the back of this one. Quote, "Recitation by the many protectors. We have come that we may extend our protection around the healthy child, Menahotep, alive, sound, and healthy, born of the noble woman, Sitsobek, alive, sound, and healthy." Other wands are inscribed in the front with the words protection by day and protection by night. The texts indicate that the wands were used to defend infants against malign forces. Having provided defense against illness during life, after death, the wands were placed in the tomb to ensure the continued protection of the deceased spirit in its eternal afterlife. Bro, magic wands, bro. Magic wands.
Jesus. Oh my goodness.
Now you're right, bro. We don't understand the science behind it. Absolutely.
Science.
Absolutely. I don't have a clue. You're right. Someone need to help me out, bro. But hey, you know what? If they want to make the claim that Harry Potter is a ripoff of Ancient Kemet, I rock with you. I rock with you. That's facts. They got it from the African. You're right.
Right.
You're right. Exactly. It's like talking about spooky while casting they're casting spells, Lala. They're casting spells. What's the metaphysics behind this? What's the quantum mechanics by being Doctor Strange? Like, what's going on? Like,
But
explain that.
But see, here's the issue. The issue is not with there being unseen forces. Now, as a Christian, I believe that.
Absolutely.
You got Dr. Michael Heiser coming on here later on in the month. We believe that.
Yes.
Nevertheless, we're going to be consistent, and we don't need no wand or nothing like that. We got the name of Jesus at which every knee shall bow.
Baker, the next time they talk to you about this, tell them, where's the magic wands? Where's your magic wand, son? Ask them. It's crazy, bro. It's crazy. Like, it doesn't get more spooky than this. It doesn't get more spooky. You're conjuring up protection by day, protection by nights, you know, and they thought this was real. Why? Because one of these wands was used to protect children, right? Which, of course, any parent, you know, that's rule number one. Like, I got to do what I need to do to protect my children. So if this works, I'm going to use it. They believed in this stuff. You know what I mean? That would be fine if they did that. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like they believe in this stuff. You guys don't believe in it, but your quote unquote ancestors, they did. Because they always say that these are principles, right? That it's science. Great. Can you show me where these people that we're talking about are agreeing with you? Because it doesn't seem like they are. It does not seem like they are. Word. Hogwarts, me. Absolutely.
And hiding behind Star Wars ain't gonna help you. Sitting there saying that this is a force, that ain't gonna help you, because that is just as illogical and incoherent as the worldview that we're critiquing.
Right. Quick question here: does the Kemetic community ignore Nubians? I wouldn't say a total ignoring, but they like to stay on that one part of Africa. For some reason, they don't really want to talk too much about West Africa or Sub-Saharan Africa. To them, Africa is Egypt, and that's it. You know, and I wonder where they get that from.
I'll tell you why.
I know you.
I'll tell you exactly why. What we're dealing with, even with the whole Afrocentric movement, is even when Dr. Ben and Joseph Ben Yakin, and I can't call him a doctor because he's not a doctor, and John Henrik Clark and all of them, what they were doing was trying to build self-esteem. They were not doing scholarship. They were trying to build self-esteem and dignity within the academic community. They were trying to do it through that way. We had already seen Elijah Muhammad and some of the Hebrew Israelite movements try to do it through religion, okay? And we're talking about identity, but they were trying to do it through academics. Nevertheless, it was built on falsehoods. And just like Elijah Muhammad, just like the Hebrew Israelites, it was built on falsehoods and revisionist history. So you're getting the same thing, but it was a self-esteem job that they were trying to do.
But bro, magic wands though, bro. I'm saying, magic wands. What do you think? You think, Mr. Detroit, where's the scientific thing that I'm missing out when it comes to these magic wands? Like, what high science am I missing out?
Bro, your guess is as good as.
Oh man, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Sound like a good movie script, though.
Yeah, right. The magic wands of Kemet. That could be what, the Mummy Part 12 now, right?
I'm about to grab some water. Give me 1 sec.
Cool. So now this is the death blow right here. This is where it really collapses the glass house of the Kemetic worldview, right? This is a book setting the scene, the deceased and regenerative cult within offering table imagery of the Egyptian Ode to Middle Kingdoms by Barbara O'Neill. This is what she says. Until the latter part of this period, the non-royal deceased had limited access to an afterlife beyond the tomb. The ideological chasm between king and his subjects was emphatically obvious. Only the king crossed the great divide and ascended to heaven. While kings enjoyed a smorgasbord of stellar, solar, and Osirian expectations in the royal netherworld, the elite were restricted to an earthbound eternity. Direct contact with the gods was the prerogative of the monarch, who acted as a guarantor of continued order, indicated in the change of seasons, the return of the inundation, and the movements of celestial bodies. So, what I'm saying is that I'm saying, like, it wasn't for everybody. Heaven was not for everyone. It was only for the Nasut and maybe his family. Not even the elite, it says here. The elite, the people that the top 1%, they didn't get in. This was just for the Pharaoh. No one else. In fact, if you read elsewhere in this book, the only time people started getting this information was when the first kingdom started to collapse and the information started to seep into the rest of the community. But if it wasn't for that economic turnover, you guys wouldn't know anything about this. Because you hear guys talk about, well, I got the Perep M Heru, the Book of the Dead. That wasn't for you. You wasn't supposed to have that book. You're not the Nasut Bidi. You're not the Pharaoh. That book was not written for you. In fact, the copies that we have actually have blank spaces to write the name of the owner of that book. This wasn't for everyone's perusal. This was just for the Pharaoh. And then later on, as the kingdoms progress, then you start seeing like the more well-to-do and the Scrabble class get a chance. The poor people didn't have this. In fact, you know what the poor people actually did? I should put this slide. They would bury their kids and their family members close to the pyramids because they hope that they can hitch a ride with the Pharaoh when he transitions, because they couldn't afford the price of admission. So you have a worldview. You hold to a worldview that doesn't hold to you.
So much for that, for everybody being kings and queens.
Oh, yeah, we was kings. No, you was not. No, you was not. You was not a king. And even if you was well-to-do, you still wasn't getting in because you wasn't in the Nasut. But the gospel's for who?
Everybody.
Right?
Paperboy's comment, Imago Dei, that's the nail on the head. In the ancient world, the monarch was considered the mouthpiece of God on earth, and that's what made Yahwehism, so unique, because all humanity had the opportunity to be the Imago Dei, not just the king. That was revolutionary for the ancient world, for something like that to be the case. Most religions worship nature. We worship Yahweh.
Right. I mean, at best, when it came to the whole king thing, at best you had two, up and low in Egypt. And trust, they were trying to get rid of that as soon as possible, because one was trying to take over the other guy ASAP. You know what I mean? So it was the non-royal deceased had limited access to an afterlife beyond the tomb. Non-royal, that means everybody else. If you wasn't a royal blood, you wasn't going to heaven. This is the worldview you subscribe to? So you want me to give up my Bible for a book that I'm not even supposed to have in my possession? And I don't know about you, I don't like having things that people don't want me to have. That's just not me. I don't get down like that. I wasn't supposed to have to put an Emheru, or the Book of Gates, or the coffin text, or the pyramid text. I was supposed to have that. That was for you. That was for the Pharaoh, and only for the Pharaoh. And I don't think people in this community even understand this. Because in their minds, they think, I'm Pharaoh. I'm like, no, you're not. You're baking bricks like everybody else. You know what I mean? It's like you would probably be the same dude that you are now back then.
Baking bricks.
Baking bricks by the Nile, baby.
Drinking beer and baking bricks.
Drinking beer, building bricks, hoping that, if I could bury my grandma close enough to the pyramid, she might have a shot. Might have a shot. And you want me to forget this Bible and take this. Dude just wilded. So, you know what I mean? So that's pretty much what I wanted to share. Like I said, it was maybe much more the Cliff Note version of some of the things that we brought out during the debates. That'll be fun to revisit them with you guys. Yeah. You're doing good, BK. Thanks, bro. I appreciate that. So, but you got to tell them, right? Paperboy, come home. The gospel's for everybody. Facts.
Well, you have, and me and Adam Coleman, we talked about it last week on his show. You got guys out there like Browder, who's big up in Kemet, but you're not even telling half of the story. You sitting here pushing reincarnation. The Kemetics didn't believe in no reincarnation. You were not coming back. You were not coming back.
Brandon Frazier would be furious.
you were not coming back. And if you didn't do right, well, you just said already that if you were not royalty or the elite, you were already out of luck to begin with, But they didn't believe in no reincarnation. What we have today that these guys are pushing is just New Age doctrine dressed in kente cloth.
That's it.
All it is.
That's it.
That's it. That's all it is. And I know that when I first started dealing with them, it was so bizarre and so weird. But the more that I got to studying the ancient Kemetics, the more that I got to saying, okay, it's not adding up. But these people are parroting Shirley MacLaine and they sitting there writing. Browder wrote a book on Avatar.
Really?
Oh, I love Star Wars. I bet you do. Right? Everybody know what an Avatar is, right? That's they're blue. Come on, man. This is Hinduism. No one. Why? Exactly why you love it.
Pantheism. Right.
Because you're and the New Age is based. The New Age doctrine is based off of Eastern mysticism.
Mm-hmm.
It's based off those Eastern beliefs. Come on now, and it's
he just want to get his hands on some of that unobtainiism.
I like that unobtainiism. Oh, word! He is running LA. Was that Dodgers? Wearing a Dodgers hat, fam?
It's a black hat, y'all.
No, it's not, no. I didn't even see that. Thanks for showing me that. This dude's wearing a Dodgers hat.
My other hat is in the car, y'all. Y'all gotta let me make it tonight.
Okay, fine. We're banging on Kemet, not on your hat. For now. So what's the difference? This is a great question. What's the difference between pantheism and pantheism? Panentheism and pantheism. Who wants to grab that?
That's a good question. I gotta look.
Okay. Well, in the simplest of terms, and I could be wrong because but pantheism is the view that everything is divine. Okay. Panentheism is the view that the divine
animals, right?
is in everything.
Right. Yeah.
It is in it, kind of like what the soul is, how the soul is in the human body. Is very weird and nuanced, but those are the two different.
Pantheism is like the Force in Star Wars. Yeah. But panentheism is it's kind of like and all right, in Transformers, you got that one planet that's one big robot. What's his name again?
Cybertron. So
Cybertron would be pantheism. The planet is a robot. Whereas pantheism would be Obi-Wan Kenobi's explanation of the Force. It moves, it's in our body, and It's like what Jabari said. It's in the table. It's in this. It's in that. Right. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much the definition.
Yeah.
So, anybody else have any questions about what we just shared today?
I had one more. I wanted to take a crack at that because I have to look up the panentheism.
All right, go for it.
All right. So, pantheism, gods and everything. Panentheism is sentient God and everything. So I think one implies simply presence in everything, and other implies actual self-awareness and intent, like in those things, not just simply being a part of it. But that's just my cursory response based off of me looking up the definition of the one.
No, there's nothing wrong with that.
Wasn't familiar.
There's nothing wrong with that, bro.
In my Google scholarship on.
There you go. So, any questions, guys? Any questions?
Another good book on this is, you can check out Norman Geisler's Christian apologetics books. He chapter 11 is on pantheism, and chapter 12 is on panentheism, and he critiques them and things like that. So yeah, Norman Geisler's Christian apologetics book. You can check that out. Dr. Norman Geisler, sorry.
Cool. That's what's up.
I actually met him a few times. He was pretty.
Nice.
He was from here in Detroit. He's
sharp, extremely sharp.
Cool. From Warren, Michigan, same city that Eminem's from.
Brother said he read atheist material for devotions.
Wow.
So he can shred them up.
Oh, okay. That's crazy. So
money too. He was an illiterate. He couldn't read until he was an adult, after he had dropped out of school and then ended up becoming a PhD. Dr. Norman Geisler. He was a crazy, amazing guy.
Did you guys see Brother Polite's debate a battle rapper Twerk? Twerk is not really? Twerk is supposed to be a Christian now? That can't be the same Twerk I know. New Jersey Twerk? No, you got the wrong. That can't be him. That dude does not rhyme about God at all, unless he just got converted. His name's Twerk. Nah, not him. Really? You gotta put the link. So that's news to me, because that dude was straight gun bars all day. That kid. Wow, I gotta check that. Okay. What does the Kemetic community think about ancient Egyptians enslaving Nubians? They say nothing about it. That's what they think about it, because they have a romantic ideal of Kemet. That is just the enchanted land of Shangri-La, where everyone looked like Idris Elba, and they sung amazing African songs and chanted, and while you just floated in the air in your flying lotus position, and where the flying saucers would come by and meet it. Like that's they didn't know that Egypt enslaved other black people, especially Kush, right? Wretched Kush, they called them.
Did you just drop a NORAD Rad Easter egg there? Shangri-La?
It's like, it's like, it's a romantic idea. It's like Egypt was very imperialistic. They enslaved people in the name of God. And we have the receipts. We have the steles. It's written in the Temple of Karnak, where they have tons of people with severed penises to show to their God that they got all these people. Like, it's there. Word? Yo, New Jersey Twerk is a Christian? Is that what you guys saying? That'd be crazy if that's true. Word? I gotta check that. We got Titus 2 in the building. What's up? No, not the ancestors. They never owned slaves. We invented that joint. What are you talking about? We invented slavery. So, but yeah, man, it's crazy. They're highly romanticized. They call other black people wretches and animals, that they couldn't speak well, and it was horrible. And it was part of their religion. they would cast spells. There's these things called accretion texts that they would get these slabs of clay and write these curses on these people. And to make sure it works, they would drop it and break, and hoping that just how the clay broke, so would their spirits. Which is, again, where's the metaphysics behind that? What's the quantum mechanics behind that joint?
Sound like voodoo.
So, right, voodoo. Right, absolutely. Thanks, D. Appreciate it. Yeah, I gotta check that out, bro. Thank you. Or sis. I don't know. D could go either way. You know what I mean? Not that you do. I'm just saying the name.
Yeah. Will got it. Will Notes got it.
Silver Surfer.
That Noran Rad comment. That's Silver Surfer's name before he became the Silver Surfer. He was Noran Rad from Shangri-La.
Oh wow. Okay. I wasn't even thinking of that. I was thinking of the actual the enchanted land that Marvel took from. Yeah. So
did you see Lobo 07103? Did you see his question?
His question, no. Where's wait. What about communities that try to say that Jesus was learned from Kemet because they lived there for a while? Well, here's the thing. There was a huge Jewish community in Kemet during that time. Yeah. You know, so he'd be right at home in that community.
And my question is, what's the problem with that? I mean, the Bible explicitly tells us that Moses was educated in Egypt, and Jesus is like the second Moses, which is, you know, part of the parallelism that's there with Jesus going to Egypt. I don't see why that would be an issue. If only thing that only makes him more intelligent, not less intelligent.
Right. Now, I know we're banging on Kemet, but let's be real. They're highly evolved civilization. You know, those hieroglyphics were very difficult to decipher. Like, these people were extremely, you know, well read, you know, and the architecture, I mean, it's still standing, right? I mean, it's amazing stuff. So yeah, if anything that's good and knowledgeable, you should take for yourself, you know, no matter where it comes from, because that would be a genetic fallacy, you know. Like I always say, 2 + 2 = 4, even if Hitler says it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So if they got it, then take it if it's good.
But not if Donald Trump says it.
Ah, terrible.
I think what a question like that is trying to get at is the Egyptian mystery systems.
Right.
Okay. So the person who, first and foremost, you would have to concede that Jesus existed. Most comedics don't want to do that if they want to play these games. You talk about Moses, you have to concede that Moses existed. They really don't want to do that either. Okay. But second of all, you also have to deal with the fact of 4 BC when Herod died. He died right after he put Antipas to death. And then in the biblical text, the angel lets Joseph know that it's okay to come back.
Right.
The next time that we see Jesus is when he's in the temple, speaking with the scribes and the scholars of the law. So the Kemetic would be hard pressed to demonstrate how early could a person begin to be educated in those mystery systems and things like that. So it would be on them to prove it, but we have evidence that Jesus came back a few years. Herod wanted to kill kids, I believe it was either 3 and under or 2 and under.
Right,
okay.
Something like that.
And then he died in around 4 BC. So Jesus wasn't that old when he came back. And then we see Jesus at the temple around 12. So like they would need to demonstrate all that.
And then also you have to demonstrate that Jesus was plugged in to the elite class off rip.
Yep.
And if you know anything about ancient Kemetic, they weren't that fond of foreigners, let alone letting a foreigner know their sacred mysteries. Because remember, the Book of the Dead wasn't for everybody. It was just for the Pharaoh. So Jesus had to have the illest plug in Kemet to get all that stuff. You know, here's another question. when the Kemetic community says that Jesus is a copycat God, what God they're referring to? I mean, it's basically a composite sketch of various gods throughout the kingdoms, right? Because it can't be just one God, because they change gods as time progressed, right? So, and sometimes they even join forces,
They were
like Cerberus,
yeah.
right? So, but no God in Egypt was like Jesus. They're like doing the whole Horus, but when you look at the story of Horus, it's nothing like a guy getting chopped up to different pieces.
Yeah.
Then his wife/wife, right? I mean, wife/mom has to bring all the parts back, but can't find his male member.
Right.
And she had to go into the water to find it, and she had to make a gold phallus. And then once she made the gold phallus, she had to cast a spell. And then as a eagle has sex with the dead body, that's Osiris. I'm talking about Osiris, right?
Yeah, Osiris.
Dead body, to revive the dead body so that they can have a son named Horus. And then Horus and Set, they have this incredibly long, nasty sexual wrestling match. Like nothing like that sounds like the gospel. Like it just doesn't. When you read the primary sources, it's nowhere near Jesus.
I have read some I can't remember. I think it was Kurd. I think he's a professor at Southern University, and he talks about the which is common, in the ancient world. A lot of the biblical, some of the stories in the Old Testament was polemical. Was God kind of actually doing what their myths were,
exactly,
that he was the true and living God. And you combine that with the fact that often the way that you knew certain things were God was because it fit a motif, this repeated thing, this barren woman giving a baby, this younger brother succeeding the older brother and becoming the patriarch. There were these repeating things. So in one sense, you have to consider the Old Testament or that time frame in general within its proper context, and that is repetition. Their repetition wasn't necessarily a sign that somebody copycatted anything. It could have either been a polemic or it could have been a motif. That's how you knew God was speaking. Also, as I kind of blurted out earlier, like the Egyptians, Romans, these were syncretistic religions. These were religions that would blend gods. If you got this the rain god over here, this the rain god over there, and our communities, some of our citizens end up joining together, it was common for them to sync those two deities into the same thing, because often they had artifacts that were supposed to be like the channel through which these deities interacted with us human beings. So if you got this stick and your stick is an Asher pole or whatever, you got this stick and your stick is this the representative of your rain god, my stick breaks and we've got some restoration guy making us a new stick, we might worship the same God through the same stick as you, since both guys did the same thing. So as you alluded to earlier, with people with this idealism, it's easy to look back and romanticize history as if there's no nuance to it. The reality is, if you read and begin to understand the ancient world, you'll realize that there's real good reasons for when there is, and in some cases, like with the Horus one, later on, after the resurrection gets added to his story. So it's not, but what they do is they say, well, Horus pre-existed Jesus, but what they don't tell you is that part of the story didn't pre-exist. That part of the story came along hundreds of years later after the fact.
It's the same thing with Mithras.
Right. Same thing with Mithras.
And some of these, a good book for y'all to get is The Gospel in the Greeks by Ronald Nash. Or if you want something else, you can get Reinventing Jesus by Dr. Daniel Wallace, Ed K. I can't pronounce his last name, but the simple fact of the matter is, Osiris was not resurrected like Jesus was. Okay, and Osiris was a contingent being. Jesus was God in the flesh. Jesus pre-existed his birth. So we have vast differences. Second of all,
And technically, Osiris didn't even come back to the land of the living. He was the god of the dead, of the
he was
underworld.
God of the dead.
Yeah.
He didn't, and that goes to the whole point, even dealing with reincarnation. The dead wanted to be identified with Osiris. They wanted to be just like Osiris and be identified with him. He didn't come back. Furthermore, Jesus is a historical person. We can talk about the Josephus text, and there's good evidence that Josephus does mention Jesus. He mentioned Joseph. He mentions John the Baptist. We could look at Tacitus, Pliny the Younger. So we got good evidence outside of the Bible. We have the writings of Paul. We have the Creed,
The Talmud.
in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, and the information. What we're talking about doing right now is just good historiography. And anybody who says that Jesus is a composite of all these deities is just ignoring the positive information that's out there that confirms that he was a real person, historical person, and the Gospels emerged too early for myth to creep in. Now, if the Gospels emerged 200 years down the road, okay, but they didn't emerge 200 years down the road. They emerged within a few 40 years. Mark was written in the 60s, so they say. But you have that creedal information in 1 Corinthians 15 that's just a couple of years after the crucifixion.
2 to 3 years after.
Right.
So we have excellent evidence for Jesus, and it's
in fact, most of the creedal statements that Paul quotes probably existed prior to Paul's conversion.
Right.
Yes.
So it's not even Paul's words. He's quoting stuff that he got.
Right.
So when we say creedal information, what we're talking about is oral information, oral tradition here. That's just as good as writing, if not better, within that context.
So Ms. Titus 2 says, how would you respond to someone who says that Josephus' writings have been tampered with and thus not usable evidence? First thing you have to say is, in comparison to what text? Because in order to know something was tampered, then that means there's an original extant copy, right? That you can now say, okay, we got the extant copy. Here's a younger version. And yeah, we see somebody did something to the original, right? So they got to show you that there's even an extant copy of Josephus to even prove there's a discrepancy, right? So just that alone, they got to show you. So you guys can do the rest.
A good book is The Historical Jesus by
Gary Habermas.
Gary Habermas.
Yeah.
In one of the chapters on the ancient non-Christian sources, he talks about in 1972, Professor Shlomo Pines of the Hebrew University in Jerusalem released the results of a study on an Arabic manuscript containing Josephus' statement about Jesus. Okay, that statement lines up with the reconstructed statement that lacks the interpolation, and it lines up perfectly. So once again, I can't go through all of it right now, and maybe we'll talk about it one day on my channel, but get the book. This is only people who are not familiar with the literature say these things.
Yeah. I can explain the logic of it, although I think that to a certain degree, BK already hit it a little bit. Basically, the earliest full copy of Josephus is like the 9th century, right? 800s. But there's an internal marker where it mentions the name of a official in the present tense, which dates all the way back to the 2nd century. I think it's like 150 or something like that. So it dates back pretty early when it's mentioning this person in the first sense, in addition to the fact that the language that's used in it is from that same period of time. So even though their argument is where you don't get this information about Jesus until you get to the 9th century, because and that's partly because earlier copies are fragmented. But the reality is, because of the language as well as the reference, that's how they date in textual criticism. That's how they date books. So you can really argue compellingly consistent with how the world worked back then, that information is very early on rather than being very late, when we finally get a copy with it in there.
Now, you see what Apologists in Detroit just did? He showed you exactly a methodical process to figure out where the book comes from. The person that makes that claim, they got to do that for their claim. You can't just say, oh, it's been tampered with. No. How? Show us how that happened. Just like how Apologists in Detroit just gave you the layout of how we know that it is. There is a more extant copy, even though we have a 9th century version of it. They got to show us their methodology in which they come to the conclusion that this has been tampered with. If you make the claim, the heavy lifting is on you, not me. So one more question before we out of here, because we've been here for a minute. One more question. Come on. Let's see. Yeah, pray for the East Coast. Supposed to be getting hit with this major snowstorm, which is crazy. Like pandemics, killer hornets, blizzards in May. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
If no one says anything, let me do another quick plug. The Unseen Realm of Apologetics with Dr. Michael Heiser, May 25th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Like, share, and subscribe. All right? Please. All right? So, I plugged. Now it's your turn. Mr. Apologist in Detroit. What's coming down next to you?
Oh man, I got my I'm got my outline half set for the Christianity and racism. I got my full outline for the next installment of the Problem of Evil. I got kind of set back a little bit because I was invited both to do the Sunday morning sermon for my church on May the 24th. I'll be pre-recording that, but so I had to kind of park some of my projects in order to focus on that, to get that produced in time. And then I'm also going to be a guest on Quentin. He was in here earlier. I'm not sure if he's still here on the same Sunday, the 24th, to do a talk on reading the scriptures with Western eyes. So I got a few projects on the fire coming up. Yep. That's
what's up. How about you, MJ? Well, actually, are you guys gonna come back tomorrow, right, to the bodega or what?
Yeah, I don't have it. I'm stuck at home, man. Quarantine.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I'll probably be hooking up with you tomorrow as well.
That's what's up. So we'll talk about a plethora of different things. So me and Adam Coleman will be discussing, of course, the craziness, of Ahmaud Arbery and how should Christians view injustice. So that'll be Saturday night. So that's definitely must-see TV, and also, of course, Michael Heiser, and I'm also doing a 3-part series on the Sabbath with Soldier of Christ Ministries and CMB, the ambassador. So, yeah, buddy. So good things coming.
Miss Titus' question about the Apocrypha.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, my talk from Cyber City covered that. So if you go back to the Cyber City talk from a month ago, my talk addresses the Apocrypha. It also talks a little bit more about that Josephus as well.
So, hey, man, I'd like to hear that you thought I want you. Okay. Yeah, that might be a show. Thank you. Definitely appreciate that. So, with that being said, okay. That being said, so it's the BK Apologists, MJ Jackson, Apologists in Detroit, signing off. Catch you on the flip side. 1.